Hey guys, it's Anna. Hope you're doing well. Today is November 5th, which means we are T-minus 2 days to the release of Iron Flame, which means it is definitely time for me to finally read Fourth Wing. Hey friends, it's Anna. Welcome to my channel. I am so excited to take you guys along with me these next few days as I finally read the most popular fantasy book of 2023. I'm starting this only 2 days before the next book in the series, Iron Flame, comes out. But if this book is as good as everybody says it is, I should presumably fly through it. So hopefully I can finish it before the next book arrives. For now, I'm going to get cozy, make myself some tea, and read about some dragons. Ooh, there's a map. I love when there's a map. Okay, I'm only about 50 pages in, but I thought I'd check in real quick. By the way, I'm not going in with a lot of knowledge. I knew there was dragons, I knew there was some sort of dragon riding school, and that there was a romance that I think is enemies to lovers. Well, now I know is enemies to lovers because we have been introduced to Xaden, who I'm pretty sure is going to be like the in-game romance. It was a little cringy when we were introduced to Xaden, and there have been a few cringy moments in the writing, but it's definitely drawn me in, and I'm very curious about this world. Some of the world building has been a little wonky, like for example, the first trial of this dragon riding college is that our main character Violet has to cross this parapet and just not fall to her death basically. So as a way of calming herself down, she just starts reciting world building facts. So part of my brain was like, okay, this is some pretty obvious info dumping, but another part of me was like, you know what, this character is just laying out the world for us nice and neat, and this was actually very helpful, and I have a lot less confusion and questions about the world, so it was kind of nice in a way. I am enjoying it so far. I'm excited to keep on reading tonight. I am a little distracted because I'm watching football, but we'll see how far I can get the rest of the day.
Whoa! What? That was not late. He was in bounds.
What? Good morning, guys. It's the next day and I am so ready to continue this story. I think I'm getting sick actually, so I guess it works out that I'm just gonna curl up in a blanket all day and read this book. I got about a third of the way through the book yesterday and I peeked at the next chapter, and we're about to get to the threshing, which is where they can potentially bond to their dragons. I really like the pacing so far. I've been very entertained and excited to see what happens next. I am especially excited to see what happens at the threshing. I have a guess of what dragon Violet's going to bond to, so I just really want to see if I'm right about that. I'm still struggling with the world building, mainly in that this world they're in just seems ridiculous. So the war college that they're going to and training to become dragon riders, and then after graduation they'll join the military. is just so brutal. And I understand that military training needs to be harsh and they're trying to prepare them for a war, but it seems like they're just killing off these children like it's nothing. Why do you have to make the trials a life or death situation? Why, when someone falls off this obstacle course, do they have to plummet to their deaths? Like, put a cushion down or a net and then just disqualify them, but let that person go on to serve as a scribe or a healer or have some other useful function in society. But it just seems ridiculous that they have to die just because they fell off of the obstacle course. But even though that's bothering me a little bit, I am still eating this book up and I can't wait to get back into it today. Okay, I had to stop for a second and talk to you guys for a little bit because there are a few inconsistencies that are starting to get on my nerves a little bit. So Xaden and Violet are obviously on the enemies to lovers track, and they have a very real reason to be enemies with their families and histories, which I actually really appreciate that there is a warranted conflict between them. So because of this, though, Xaden could potentially pose a real threat to Violet's life, and everyone is acting like he could kill her at any time because apparently no one minds when they murder each other here at this school. But never for one moment have I actually believed that he would harm a hair on her head. It just is not believable that he's a real threat to her, so it just feels so silly when Violet's over here thinking like, is he gonna kill me? Am I safe? And I just want to be like, Violet, you're fine. You should really stop worrying about this. It's obvious he's not gonna hurt you. And I know I'm complaining, but I do like Xaden a lot. I think there's still a lot more to be revealed about him. Right now he does kind of just feel like a cardboard cutout of the tall, dark, handsome, dangerous bad boy that's a classic for the enemies to lovers trope. I don't necessarily mind that. There's a reason that trope is so popular, but it doesn't so far seem like there's a lot of uniqueness to his character. He's actually reminding me of Four from Divergent a lot. Really, a lot of the story, and especially their relationship and dynamic, is reminding me of Divergent. Also, I did not see what was coming during the threshing, and I am hyped for what is coming next. I think it's about to get a lot more interesting, and especially now that the dragons are more of our main characters. I am loving the dragons so far, so even though there's a few things that are getting on my nerves, I'm still really excited to continue reading. Okay, I wanted to check in with you guys one more time because I have a feeling I'm about to binge the rest of this book. Things have really heated up romance-wise and action-wise. I really enjoyed that last section of the book. I think the second half of the book has been way better because we're getting more dragons as characters. There's been a lot of character development with Xaden, and there's actually some depth to their relationship now. Also, I really appreciate a lot of the side characters really coming to life. I'm still not the biggest fan of Violet, but I love Liam and Rhiannon and their whole little squad. I'm thinking that the climax of the book is coming. Stuff is about to go down by the way this chapter ended. I think I'm on chapter 33. I have a guess at what the plot twist is going to be, but I feel like the author has been very heavily hinting at this from the beginning of the book. So unless the reveal is just something totally out of left field, I feel like she's been kind of already telling us what the twist is that's coming. But honestly, I am very invested and I just want to finish this book. Hello. It is the next day. I finished Fourth Wing last night. I didn't want to vlog about it because I needed a night to sleep on it and get my thoughts together. I'm still unsure how I'm gonna rate this book. Overall, I enjoyed this book. Was it the highest quality of writing? No. Was it the highest level of world building and plot? No. But it was entertaining and I had a fun time reading it, and sometimes that's all you need from a book. I think if I was a literary critic, which I'm not, so take everything that follows with every grain of salt, but if I was looking at this analytically, I would give it maybe like a 2 stars. But if I was looking at it just from my experience with it, did I have a good time while I was reading it, I would give it maybe a 3.5, maybe 4. No, probably not 4. Maybe like a 3.5 based solely off of that. Okay, let's get into some specific pros and cons. First, the pros. The dragons were by far the best part of this book. We got to interact mainly with 2 dragons, right? And I really loved how they both had such different and strong personalities, but were both lovable and entertaining in their own way. I also thought the pacing was good in this book. There were a few weird time jumps, but it kept me entertained, engrossed. It was fast-paced, easy to read, and that's what really counts most for me. Okay, on to the cons of this book. I'm going to do my best not to make this into a rant. I know a lot of people absolutely adore this story, and if that's you, that's awesome. I definitely understand the appeal. These are just the things that didn't meet my personal preferences because everybody likes reading different things, and that is one of the most beautiful things about reading. First, the writing. It was not for me. Now, after watching a few reviews, I don't think I hated the writing as much as a lot of people. For the most part, it didn't distract me too much from the story, but there were plenty of lines where I would cringe or kind of do a double take because it seemed so out of place. One of my other biggest issues was the world building or lack thereof. I know I've already touched on this a bit and how this world just doesn't make any sense to me. I talked about how they were just killing off cadets left and right instead of saving these people where they could serve in other areas in the war effort, even if they couldn't train to be writers. Also, a great point that was brought up in one of the review videos I watched, I think it was by Elliot Brooks. I'll link her video below so you guys can go watch it. It was hilarious. So for some context, there was a previous rebellion and all the leadership of that rebellion was executed, and then all their kids were forced into this writers quadrant in the war college where they can compete to ride dragons and be in the military, and they were also all marked with a rebellion relic. And I can't believe I didn't realize while I was reading that it was so strange that they would put them in the war college, because as someone who likes history, has studied a lot of history, especially ancient Roman history, rule number 1 when you're, say, overthrowing the emperor, you execute or exile his whole family. You don't leave his children alive and put them in a position of military power, because then what do you think's gonna happen?
And obviously, they don't bat an eye at murder in this world, so I just can't believe that they at least didn't scatter them across the empire in unimportant places with unimportant families. Instead, they put all the people that might want revenge together in the same group and gave them dragons. I mean, no brutal, controlling regime would ever be stupid enough to do something like that. So that just didn't make any sense, and I feel like it's just one example of how this world just wasn't that well thought out. That being said, I am curious to see how Iron Flame is going to go because it doesn't feel like we have that strong of a foundation, but I don't know, maybe the author is going to do some major world building work in the second installment. So I think the moral of the story, not of Fourth Wing, there were no morals in this story. The moral of my story, my summation of this book, it was just a nice little brain break that's good for some pure entertainment, maybe a few eye rolls. And that's awesome. I enjoy reading books like this sometimes. So now that we have finished discussing Fourth Wing, it's actually perfect timing because Iron Flame comes out later today. So I hope you guys are ready to read the second book with me. Hey guys, it is actually several days later. I ended up really getting sick and didn't do hardly any reading at all. So I am just 10 pages into Iron Flame. I'm planning on doing a lot more reading today though, so we can really get into it. This time around, I'm going to tab this book, which should hopefully lead to some better commentary. I can show you my tabbing system. I just have 3 different colors assigned right now. So we have this darker orange for plot and world building, the lighter orange for writing, and then this light pink or beige for characters. And then I use these stickies throughout the book whenever I want to write more down next to a tab. I get really nervous writing in my books, especially if they are a hardback or a special edition of any kind. So I'm excited to get into this book today and give you guys my thoughts. Okay guys, I am very confused. This book is starting with some very heavy world building and I keep on referencing the map and trying to figure out what the heck is going on, but the author keeps on referencing things like it seems like we were supposed to know from the last book. But I just read Fourth Wing and I have no idea what she's talking about. So either I have a terrible memory and I'm doing an awful job of understanding this war, or the author is doing a horrible job of explaining things and giving no context. I'm not sure which one it is. I don't know who's to blame here. Hey guys, I am almost to page 150. I think I'm almost about a quarter of the way through, and I'm not sure how much more reading I'll do tonight, so I wanted to go ahead and stop and check in. I'm not sure why, but my patience for this book is so much lower than what I had for Fourth Wing. I'm really struggling with the writing, the plot, or lack thereof, the dialogue. Everything about this book just isn't hitting for me like Fourth Wing did. I don't know if maybe it's just because I jumped straight into this one and I'm hitting my personal limit for this style of writing, this type of book. It could also be that I started The Shadow of the Wind after Fourth Wing and when I was only a few pages into this one. And so far, the writing in that book has been absolutely beautiful and stunning to me. Actually, I have it here. This is Shadow of the Wind, so maybe it's because I'm going from this back into this, and so it's making this writing feel worse by comparison. Let me give you an example. I'm really not that far into this one, and these blue tabs are for quotes I like, so you can see there's already been several that stood out to me. So let me just read you one. Okay, it reads, "Every book, every volume you see here has a soul. The soul of the person who wrote it and of those who read it and lived and dreamed with it." To me, that is a beautifully crafted sentence. And then we go to this, which reads, "Perfect. I forced the fakest smile known to humankind. Let's go to physics. Yay, physics." Yay, physics. That's like middle grade book dialogue. And not even to hate on middle grade books, but this is a new adult book set in a brutal fantasy world. So when we have dialogue and writing like that, it just feels so out of place. The other thing about the writing that has really gotten to me is she's using a lot of the same words or phrases over and over and over again. And the worst one that I've noticed so far is the phrase, "I lift my chin." I actually started a new tab color for that so I could track it on its own. It's this purple tab, I think I showed you guys. But the amount of times the author uses that phrase, I mean, Violet must be walking around like this. The whole book, she must be like this because so often is that phrase used. Let's just let the tabs speak for themselves. I actually stopped tabbing it because I was like, I don't want to use up all my purple tabs for this. But the first time I noticed it was, page 26. And I made a note that by page 26, this is like at least the third time she's used it. And then we have it again on page 30. And then again on page 32. And then granted, we have a little break, a pretty significant break. And then bam, we have it 2 pages in a row, right next to each other. So to me, that just feels like lazy writing because there are so many different ways you can describe a character as being proud or trying to be confident. You don't have to use the same phrase over and over again. Okay, I'm gonna stop talking there because I feel like I'm really starting to rant. So we're gonna keep on trucking through and we'll see what the next 100 or so pages bring us. Friends, I am now about halfway through Iron Flame and I am enjoying the story immensely more today. Maybe I just woke up on the wrong side of the reading bed yesterday, but everything I was reading yesterday in the first quarter of this book was just not working for me. But I feel like in the second quarter, the story has really picked up. One of the main plot lines in this book, which I think I can tell you about without really spoiling this one or Fourth Wing, is the protective wards around their country. There's a lot more with using the wards and learning about them in this book. And at the beginning of the book, when the author first introduced this plot line, there was a lot of confusion for me because I don't think she explained the wards very well. And now I finally feel like it's becoming clear what the plot is and what the characters are trying to accomplish, which now that we have this set goal and conflict, it's making the story more interesting and I'm more invested because it makes more sense. Also, the stakes are just still all over the place for me. I feel like the author thinks she has to make every small problem in the book a life or death situation, even when it doesn't fit the situation. For example, they just went on this mini mission to get some special information from the archives, and right before this happened, we learn that there's an enchantment on the archives where if you're still inside when they close, you get locked in and die. The magic just kills you. Stay too late at the library, too bad, you're dead. What? That feels so random and unnecessary. And it's not just with that, it feels like every other step Violet takes, she's thinking, if I fail, I'm going to die. If I get caught, the whole war effort is going to be lost. And with the amount of plot armor we've already seen Violet to have, and also the fact that we know the entire war is not going to be lost in a chapter in the middle of book 2, it starts to feel just a little funny when she's thinking this way and the stakes are made to be so high. It's not adding suspense, it's just over dramatic. Okay, I got up for a second and I lost my seat.
Did you want to share your thoughts on Iron Flame, Crookshanks?
But onto some things I've been liking about the book, because I feel like I've been really negative these past few check-ins, and I did enjoy this last section a lot more. I'm absolutely loving some of these side characters. I think Imogen is now one of my favorite characters. She is the only one that I find truly funny. She has some really good lines. There was one conversation between her and Violet that I really appreciated, because another thing that I liked better about this section was that the romance started to kind of come back into it. We were at a little bit of a stalemate with the romance for kind of a frustrating and silly reason. Basically, Violet just needed to get over herself, and Imogen just gave it to her and basically stated all the things that I was thinking in my head about the situation. I really appreciated Imogen for that. I also am a big fan of Jesinia. She is Violet's scribe friend. She was in the first book as well, but she's playing a bigger role in this story, which I'm really enjoying getting to see more of her. She's kind-hearted, intelligent, just a likable character overall, and it's nice to have those. So I feel like that's one thing that Rebecca Yarros really is good at, is writing side characters that truly have their own personalities and feel like real people. Now. The events of these last few pages has significantly improved my opinion of this book. Really the whole series, because some things are making a lot more sense about the first book now. I just got to part 2. Hey friends, it's the next afternoon and we are now on day 3 of reading Iron Flame. I am about 3/4 of the way through, so this might be the last time we talk before I finish the book. This book has gotten so much better from where we started. The plot has really started to heat up. I really did not have high hopes after that first 100-ish pages, but As you can see by my tabs, I'm getting a lot more invested in the story and getting less distracted by the writing and the world building, because really most of these tabs are for critiques. So you can see there's a lot fewer as we get further into the story. We're getting to the point where I can't say much about what's happening without giving up spoilers, but something I did realize is that the plot of this book is very similar to the overarching plot of Game of Thrones, like incredibly similar. Replace the you-know-whats with the White Walkers, replace the leadership of you-know-what country with the Lannisters. The group we're following now is basically the Night's Watch / the North. I mean, not exactly, of course, but there are actually a lot of parallels. I'm really racking my brain to try to figure out what could go so catastrophically wrong right now, because from everyone's reactions to this book so far, it seems like the ending is gonna be just horrible in like a devastating way. Like, is there gonna be a huge betrayal, a big death, a big cliffhanger? I don't think Rebecca Yarros would kill off Violet. I would actually have so much respect for her if she did, and I wouldn't be that sad, honestly, because I don't love Violet that much, but I just don't think that makes a lot of logical sense because there's so much potential Violet still has and so much unresolved with her power and her dragon. So I don't think that's what's gonna happen. Is she gonna kill off Xaden? I don't think she'd dare. She wouldn't dare do that, right? Or maybe she's gonna make it look like Xaden's dying and leave it on a cliffhanger. I could see that happening. I don't know, I'm just trying to figure out what would get people so upset about the ending. But I really truthfully have no idea what's gonna happen, so let's just finish the book. Okay, I was enjoying the faster pace and how the book really picked up in the second half, but now it just feels like it's going on, and I'm just kind of ready for it to be over. I just finished Iron Flame, and I think I'm gonna jump right into a spoiler section because I really want to talk to you guys about the ending, and then I'll do a more comprehensive review without spoilers a little later once I've had time to kind of digest what just happened. So if you haven't read Iron Flame, if you don't want spoilers, jump to this time, and I'll also put a spoilers tag up on the screen, and I'll put it in the chapters. So you don't want to be spoiled. Hopefully you have skipped ahead by this point, because oh my goodness, that was a crazy ending. I cannot believe that Xaden turned Venin. Looking back, I could have maybe seen that coming, but I think I was more thinking that it was gonna be Violet since she was the one having the dreams originally. But also the dreams, were they her dreams? Were they Xaden's dreams? Because now we've seen that she can be in his thoughts. So that's an unanswered question. Another thing with the whole Xaden turning Venin thing was, in that moment, it just didn't make sense to me. Maybe I was reading too fast because we were on the last chapter, but I didn't understand why he made that choice. I get that it was somehow because he loved Violet and he was trying to save her, but I don't understand logically how turning Venin saved Violet. But what I'm really wondering about is this line that was a few chapters prior. Let me see if I can find it again. Okay, so chapter 63 ends with Xaden saying that the Venin are coming for him. And then he says on the next page that the Venin didn't expect them to be at the battle, but when Violet asked him how he knew that, he says, "Do us both a favor and don't ask." So I think there is some connection even prior to this between Xaden and the Venin that we don't know yet. Something I also really want to know is what Violet's second signet is. People have come up with a lot of really good theories. I like the one that Violet's power will be talking to the dead because of the hallucination she had of Liam. I also feel like that really goes well with the lore that your signet represents who you are or what you need, because I feel like Violet is going to need to talk to her dad in an upcoming book, because I think the research he was doing is going to come into play. And I think also with all the history that's been rewritten and all the struggles they've had with finding good information in the archives, the solution to that is being able to talk to someone who lived in the past. I also have to give this book credit because it did explain some things that I had previously thought were just badly written plot holes, like Xaden being an intrinsic, or whatever you call it, that he can read people's intentions. That actually makes so much sense looking back all the way through book 1. One of the things I thought was so dumb in Fourth Wing was when Violet caught Xaden and the Marked Ones having an illegal meeting, and Xaden just believed her that she wasn't going to tell on them. I thought that made no sense at all in the moment, but now knowing that he could read her intention and knew she really wasn't gonna tell, it's so much more plausible. And also the fact that he didn't kill her because he made a deal with her mom that he wouldn't harm Violet, and in exchange she would let the Marked Ones survive and go into the Writer's Quadrant. That clears up why Xaden never actually felt like a threat to Violet in the first book, which was another thing that did annoy me. I am more impressed with the complexity of this book, and the plot was more well done than I was expecting it to be from the beginning. The overall ending left me surprised, wanting to know more, with thoughts swirling, theories forming, trying to wrap my head around it all, and those are all good signs. Hey guys, it's the next day. I have taken a little more time to get my thoughts together about Iron Flame. There is so much, so let's just get into it. First, for the prose, I did end up really enjoying the story and the ending. The plot turned in a direction that I found very interesting, and I'm super happy that we got to see more of the war and what was going on in the whole continent instead of just focusing on their war college. I think I figured out I was not really enjoying the schooling scenes, which is kind of odd because typically I love books set in an academic setting, but I think since I would never want to go to this war college, the school had less of an appeal to me. Knowing myself, I would probably still die in this world even if I was a scribe, because I can see it now. I'm in the archives, I get caught up in a book, I accidentally stay past closing, and bam, the murderous library magic kills me. But I could read about Harry, Ron, and Hermione eating at the Great Hall, going to charms class, studying for their potions final. I could read about that all day. And I think it's because I love Hogwarts. I'm reading the books because I want to feel like I'm going to Hogwarts. It's a form of escapism. But I would never want to escape into this world. It really seems like a terrible place to live. But anyways, I'm supposed to be talking about positives, and what I'm trying to say is I'm really glad that we started to get less of their schooling and more about the war in this book. And I also want to give this book credit. I think it was a lot less predictable than Fourth Wing. Again, the side characters and dragons were some of the main positives for me. I don't think I could get through these long 600 pages without them. I think those are the main things I enjoyed. There's probably a longer list of cons. So my first thought is that this book was way too long. It was over 600 pages, and by the end, I just wanted it to be over. We had to wait so long, over 100 pages in the beginning, for anything interesting to happen. And then in the middle, the plot did finally start to take off, but then there was almost too much going on, and I felt tired of all these smaller conflicts, some of which felt really unnecessary. And it was just prolonging us being able to get to the main conflict. The end of the book, it just started to drag on so long. I mean, typically books follow the pattern of exposition, rising action, where there might be, a few dips and spikes, but we're still moving towards the main conflict, and then climax, and then falling action. And there's a reason most books follow that pattern. It's a good pattern. But this book, it was like flatline in the beginning, over 100 pages. And then we had 400, 500 pages of this that wasn't even like moving us anywhere. And then all of a sudden we're at the climax, and then the book just ends. There was no falling action, no time to comprehend what just happened. The pacing was wild. And I mean, I'm okay with longer books, but if I'm gonna spend over 600 pages in a story, I just want it to be warranted. The writing was another big drawback for me, of course. I feel like I've already talked about this a lot. It was too YA, it was cringy, it was corny, it flat out didn't make sense in a lot of places. Yeah, I think it's safe to say the writing in these books just definitely weren't for me, but I will say, luckily, when the plot picked up in the later half of the book, I did notice the writing less. I also thought the romance was definitely worse in this book. It felt like Violet and Xaden just kept on going in circles instead of moving forward. They had the same fight, the same communication issues all throughout the book, and I still don't really think any of that was resolved, even though we went through it for 600 pages. We had a few really sweet moments, but for the most part, their relationship in this book just felt kind of meh. While we're talking about these two, the main characters were another thing I didn't love about this book. I don't know what it is about Violet that I just can't like. Maybe it's just that I really don't enjoy the she's not like other girls trope, and I also don't like it when our MC has to be the most special, the most rare, the most powerful, the most talented. For me, that just kind of takes away relatability, and it makes Violet not feel real. It makes her feel like what she is, a made-up character instead of a real human being that I could connect to. I think those are most of my thoughts. So with all that being said, what in the world to rate this book? It started out honestly feeling like a 2-star book, and then we got to the middle and I was thinking, man, this could even go up to 4 stars, because I can get over some poor writing and storytelling if the book is entertaining enough. But then when it was dragging out, it was gonna get knocked down again, but then the ending was pretty good. So I'm thinking maybe a solid 3 stars, but I am glad I finally know what everybody online is talking about with these books. Please let me know your thoughts on Iron Flame or Fourth Wing in the comments. I would love to hear your opinions. Everyone has such different reading experiences with different books, and I think that's one of the best things about reading. So I would love to hear your thoughts. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me. I'm wishing you all the 5-star reads, and I'll see you in my next video.